So, I haven't done a memory video for a while, and since I've been writing on my autobiography, different memories spark and trigger, and this one did. Um, the other day, when I was writing, I was home on Monday, and as I approach in my autobiography, I'm in 1984 right now. Touching on events that happened and took place at the beginning of 1984, and I'm going to write in sections through the years as I indicated, but I'm going to break those sections up into categories when I reach 1986, and in 1986 I'll touch on stuff that happened, and then I'll have a new section on my adoption period and go from there. But this one takes place in 1986. I was 21, and I had asked to go up to Thousand Trails with my mother and uncle. And so they took me up there, and this one day, I think it was in the afternoon, they were arguing, and I don't remember what they were arguing about, if I knew what they were arguing about to begin with. And it scared me. And so they were in the bedroom yelling at each other about stuff that I don't recall what it has to do with. And I got up out of the RV because I was in the living room, and I left the campsite, and I walked up to where the little gift store was located at, and I was up there in front. The gift store, I think, was open, but there was a bench sitting outside there, and I sat out there, and I was out there crying and stuff like that, and I was out there for the longest time, and then all of a sudden their car pulls up because they were out looking for me, and mother gets out of the car and comes sits with me, and I'm crying, and she takes a hold of me, and she says, "Where have you been?" And I told her, "Up here." And she asked me, why am I crying? And she sometimes would say to me, not this particular time, but she would say, I'll give you something to cry about because I haven't given you anything to cry about. You have no reason to be crying. But this day was not one of those times. And I told her that you were arguing and fighting, and it scared me, and I thought it was my fault. And she reassured me that no, it wasn't my fault, and she was sorry that I heard them arguing, and it scared me to make me take off. They brought me back to the RV, and she calmed me down, and they both kind of felt, you could tell they felt bad that they're arguing with each other. Scared me. And I told her, I had told her I thought that her and Uncle Bud were going to get a divorce, because of one of the things he said to her, and but anyway, so that a short memory about that. And so this is going to be like a mixed memory thing. I looked back on my notes that I had, and one of the things that this happened through the years when I would go see her, and she would inspect me, and she'd have me, let me look at you, turn around, see how I was properly dressed, and I have to go like this with my hands, and she'd look at my nails to make sure that I was properly groomed. My nails were filed the way she taught me. They were cleaned up underneath the nail. My hair was properly brushed, and I wasn't allowed to have combs in my pocket, and I would carry these type of combs in the back of my pocket. Well, the rule was that no comb was allowed to be inside my pocket, because I would always take it and, I would comb my hair back like that, um, and put the comb back in my pocket. And so she would always take these combs from me, and she took several of these combs from me. She had a collection of my combs, multicolored. And when she first started taking those combs away from me, I never knew what happened to them until this one day that I needed to go into the bathroom, and she said to comb your hair out of your face, because it would always hang like right here down in my face. And I opened up the center drawer in the bathroom, and there was all of my combs. There must have been like 15 of them in there. I was, I think, about like 24 years old at that time period. And I'm like, that's where you put all my combs. That's where they're all at. And she goes, and you leave them right there. She goes, they stay right where they're at. They belong to me. Because if I had a comb in my pocket, she'd go like this. And these combs went inside of her hand. She took them. And I always thought that she threw them away. But of course, I'd always buy more, because back then in the 80s, these type of combs are very popular. And I see them from time to time. And I try to get different color ones, and I always lose them. But I have 3 of these that I frequently use. And yeah, I always remember the thing about my combs. And she never did give those back to me. Never. And so when I told Karen about the combs, and she goes, I go, because I told her, I said, I have a really good memory. I said, I know that RV from 1986 like the back of my hand. I could describe it to you. And Karen goes, I remember going inside the bathroom, and she went there for something. She goes, I remember all those combs. She goes, inside that door. She goes, I always wondered where they came from and who they belonged to, because Mom never really, had combs. I said, yeah, all of those combs were mine. And so she laughed, and she thought that was kind of funny. And she goes, Mom never gave them back to you? I said, no, I never got them back. So I'm sure at some point in time she threw those combs away, or maybe she held on to them as long as she could, in the hopes that she would see me someday and give those combs back to me, because I would have asked her, do you still have the collection of my combs? May I please have them back? Because I would, multicolored, I mean, they were all like different colors, and I would have a colored comb that matched my outfits. And Mama had all of my combs. So there's that. And all of those little stories will go in my book at some point during those sections. Let's see, what else is there? Because let's see, there's a lot, but I suddenly can't think now. But yeah, she's been on my mind, as she always is, because I think of her every single day. There's not a day that has gone by throughout all of these years, even when I talked to her on the phone, that I never thought about her. And I always did, every day. Ever since I was 26 years old, I always thought about her. Always. And that has continued, and it will probably continue throughout my life, I'm sure. And I was thinking this morning, because I keep trying to quit smoking, and the longest I've gone so far now is like 3 weeks. But this morning, when I rolled into where I'm at now, that she had said that when all of this is over, meaning Dad's funeral, that comes to a head. that it stops, and I will correct all of that, because that is something that Dad wanted. He wanted me not to smoke when I was 23, when the family found out that I was smoking. And he found out months before they all did, because Nana told him. And he made me, the day that he had a talk with me when I cursed out the family when I was 23 in 1988, that he made me smoke. And so he knew then. And so my mother didn't, and the rest of the family didn't find out until something like 4 months later. And I don't remember how that came to be, when she was told or why she was told, but I think he had just finally told her, and he was living in Anaheim at the time, that I was smoking, and he wanted her to correct that, and he wanted her to make me stop smoking. And that didn't happen because she had said, we were not in the right place. She had told me that before that, she wasn't going to make me stop smoking, that I was a big girl, those were my choices, but she preferred that I would not smoke. And I went through this raging fit and stuff, and I have videos all on that. And I'm glad, it'll be 4 years this August when I started making videos. I'm glad I started making them back then, because now I have references to go back on. Not that I forgot what I said or anything that happened, but it's going to help with me writing my book. Because it is a video documentation of a journal of different things that happened and did take place in pretty much detail. And I'm trying to be, with my autobiography, as accurately as I can. And Tony texted me the other day, and he said, I was just telling Hector how you always say that I don't remember anything. Because he generally doesn't. And he remembered this incident happened in 1990. He was, everybody, the family was at this fundraiser bike race charity thing for 99.1, the radio station out of Riverside at the time. And that radio station exists, but I don't think it's in Riverside. It obviously doesn't play the music that I used to listen to. But I have a picture of us. I have to find those pictures, but we, after the race and stuff like that, we end up winning tickets to go to this place in Riverside that doesn't exist anymore. The building's there, but the actual place that we went to is not there. But it was called Monopolies, and we won tickets to go see Michael Winslow. And he was in the Police Academy movies, that he made all those weird sounds and stuff like that. And so there was we were there. It was me, Tony, Scott, Mike, and I forget who else. But we were at this table. And there was comics that openers that came out before Michael Winslow did. And so we're sitting there, and the comedians are saying something, and they're waiting for the audience to respond, and I jumped right on into it. And I am not witty like that with quick responses at all. Nothing like Tony is. But this one particular night I was. And so a comedian would say something, and I'd respond to it, and everybody would laugh. And they would say something, and they would pause, and I would say something back, and everybody would laugh. So when Michael Winslow came out on stage, he made an announcement directly to me. And they had the lights were off, and they had the spotlight going around the room and stuff like that. And all of a sudden the spotlight focused right on our table, right on me. And Michael Winslow addressed me, and he told me something along the lines about, I was told that you are making, comments back and stuff like that. He goes, I don't need comments back. And I said, they're the ones who did it. They said something and there was a pause. Like they were waiting for a response from the audience. I said, so I just chimed right in. Everybody laughed. So it was like I was the comedian, they weren't. So the thing with Michael Winslow, what I did was, the only thing I remember, and then I shut up because he made an announcement to me again, and he goes, when he flew in from Florida and he got into LA, and he goes, as the plane was heading towards LA, he goes, I looked down and it was like an opener. It's like going, and guess what I saw? And there's like a pause. I said, not much. and I don't know, people laughed. And then he's like, I can't believe on how much smog you guys have in Los Angeles. I said, well, we don't live in Los Angeles. This is Riverside, 64 miles east of Los Angeles. Everybody laughed. And then he said something else about getting off the plane, and his limousine was right there off the tarmac, and driving all the way from LA into Riverside to do this show. And I'm like, you didn't see much on that freeway, did you? I said, because it's all developed, whatever I had said. People laughed. And he, again, politely told me to shut up. And Tony's like going, puts his hand over my mouth. So he was telling Hector about that the other day, about the antics I did. And I've always mentioned that, my mother told me that I would never get away with anything with her. Not one thing. That when she's not around, she will find out about what I do. And I would say, I don't even know how she finds out. Somebody had to say something because the family was not there at the Michael Winslow concert. And so I think someone said something to Rose, because Rose and John and Anna and Blackie were at the 99.1 race of bicycling race event, but they weren't at the Monopolies with us. But I do think that they asked us. However, I think this is how it happened. I just had a trigger. How'd it go? Did you guys enjoy yourself? And like, yeah. And then I think my brother Mike was saying, yeah, and Teresa couldn't shut up. Actually, she was more funny than the comedians that were up on stage, because they'd say something, I'd say something back. So Nana got on my case about that. Nana told Ollie, Dad tells my mother, because she would always call before she came back to town to find out how I was doing, how I was being treated by the family, meaning Rose's side of the family, how I was behaving, how I was conducting myself, and did I need to be reprimanded when she came back to town. So she always, by some source, either from Dad, Nana, Dee, Aunt Rose, meaning Uncle Tom's wife, Aunt Rose, somebody would snitch on me. Somebody. Oh yeah, and Dee would snitch on me too. So when they came back, and she'd always take me out to the RV away from the family to have private one-on-one time to visit with me, because it's a promise that she made to me when I was 19 years old, and she always kept that promise. And she re-promised me all of that after the when the adoption papers and all of that would take place. She reminded me that this was something that she would always do. And so we're out there, and she's asking me how you been, blah blah blah, how's work, what have you been doing, how's things going, when am I going to get my namesake, meaning child. She knew I wanted children and I could not have children, and I was going to name my daughter after her. She was going to be named Christina Vera Marie Waltman was going to be her name. Because my mother's name is Vera Marie, and she gave me the name Vera in between my first and middle name. And so we're going through that, and then she sits and she's looking at me, and she says, well, it's been brought to my attention, because whenever I did something bad that she found out about, generally, she would say, well, it's been brought to my attention. Man, I already knew right then and there I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble for something, whatever it is that I did or didn't do, that I was supposed to do, something like that. And she goes, I understand that you and Tony and some others went to see a concert. I'm like, yes, ma'am, we did. And she's like, well, tell me about it. Did you enjoy yourself? Oh, yes. I said, we did. I said, I did. It was fun. I just didn't give too much information. And she's like, I see. And, I was talking about Tony's race and stuff like that, because he did a really good ride. I took some pictures. She got a copy of pictures. Those ones I was allowed to keep, because they had nothing to do with anybody else. They were just pictures of us and me. So I gave her pictures and stuff, and she's looking at them, and she's like, tell me more about this concert. I'm like, well, it was fun. They got up, there was a couple of comedians before Michael Winslow came out, and she's like, who's Michael Winslow? So I explained to her who Michael Winslow was, and she says, well, I understand. She goes, you couldn't keep your mouth shut. She wasn't laughing either. And so I told her, I said, well, it's not my fault. I said, the comedians came out on stage, the ones before Michael Winslow, and they would say something. And I don't remember what those are now, but I told whatever they were, I told her back then. And so this is 1990, so I was 24, 25. And it's depending on what month that was, because I currently don't remember. I have the pictures of them, and I think we have the pictures marked on the back on when that race was. So when I get to it in my book, then I can enter the date. But I know it was 1990. That I do know. And so I'm telling her, and stuff like that. I go, the comedian, she goes, you're supposed to sit there. She goes, and listen, it wasn't something to participate in. I go, well, it's their fault. I go, at least I was more funny than they were. I said, because everybody was laughing. And she's like, you were being disrespectful. Well, how is that being disrespectful? The comedian says something, and there's a pause, and I just said something right back at him. Yeah, she didn't appreciate that. Definitely, she would not have appreciated it if she was actually there. She probably would have given me a talking to and told me to keep my mouth shut, probably. So, and then we get to the thing about Michael Winslow, and I told her, and she's, I bet that made you feel real good. Did you get embarrassed? No, ma'am. I wasn't embarrassed at all, except at the end when he told me to really shut up. I said, and then Tony put his hand over my mouth. Yeah, I got in trouble for that. I said, she promised that I would never get away with anything. She didn't care how small or great it was. She would always find out, and she always did find out. Sometimes I would get a talking to, depending on how severe it was on whatever it had to do with. Then I'd get punished for that. But sometimes she would just give me a talk. She gave real good lectures, let me tell you. Her lectures could put tears in my eyes. The certain look that she would have on her face of disappointment and ashamed put tears in my eyes. She could raise her voice, put tears in my eyes. Arch her brow, her right eyebrow, she'd arch it a certain way, down like, I can't do it, but she'd arch it down, something like that. And oh yeah, and give me this look. I knew I was in trouble. And I'd start crying. And this one time she's like, I haven't given you anything to cry about yet. I'd start crying. I'd dry your eyes. And I'd dry my eyes and go like this. And I'd try looking at her without crying, and I'd still start crying. But I have to go. And that was real short. And not a lot of meat to it. But I think my book's going to be really good. It's going to have a lot of information in it. And like I told Tony the other day on Monday when I stayed home from work, not Monday, Wednesday. I didn't have to go to work Wednesday, so I had a day off. It's going to be at least a couple of volumes, because right now I'm at, with pictures added, I'm at 87 pages. And the color one is, you can only do like 500 pages. And I'm only in 1984. So it's going to be lengthy. Couple volumes, at least 2 volumes minimum. I'm looking at. I really think probably more than that, but at least 2 volumes. And Tony goes, wow. He goes, you have a really good memory. And I said, well, you always said I had a memory like an elephant and eyes like a hawk, except, you know, I don't have eyes like a hawk anymore, but I still have my memory. So I'll do more some other time. And I also need to finish that redo I was doing in 1991 in August, of stuff that I remembered in detail that I did not do when I actually did do that video, for when she told me that she would not ever see me again, and literally, physically pulled me and drugged me out of the RV because I wasn't going. So it has to do with that. So that's it for now.